Sivona vavasate, alokolisha vankaveki.
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And it is 2100 hours Central African time as we bring you the 60 minutes of the latest developments here on the continent and beyond. This is Africa World Hour. I am Tsepiso Makwetla. Lots to come up on the show. We'll be taking you live to the global Simut flotilla, the largest civilian flotilla trying to break the blockade of Gaza. We'll also tell you about the latest election results trickling in Malawi and surprise event in terms of South Africa DRC bilaterals. All of that and more coming up. Let's start with the news headlines.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We start with this. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa hosting the DRC President Felix Tshisekedi for a working visit at Mahlamba Ndlovu, the president's official residence in Pretoria. The two leaders will have an opportunity to engage on a variety of issues of mutual interest with the hope of enhancing the strategic relationship and fostering closer cooperation between the two countries. Bonolo Maribe has more.
President Felix Tshisekedi's trip to South Africa comes amid ongoing efforts by Qatar and the US to find peace in the DRC. The DRC Army and the M23 group are reinforcing military positions and blaming each other for flouting peace accords in an escalation that experts say risks reigniting the simmering conflict. Both countries are members of SADC and aim to cooperate on regional issues, including economic integration and security. South Africa, in support of SADC, the African Union and UN, plays a constructive role in promoting peace and stability in the DRC.
Now we talk about this. The urgent bid by South Africa's Umkhonto weSizwe party to hold a commission has been struck off the roll in the High Court in Pretoria. The MK party wanted the court to declare President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to place Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave and the appointment of Feroz Kachalia in the interim unlawful. This includes the establishment of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Judge Rumel Tolme handed down judgment and had this to say.
The President's decision has already been implemented. The proverbial horse has indeed bolted. The Madlanga Commission commenced with its work yesterday. Mr. Mchunu was placed on leave of absence, and Acting Minister Kachalia was appointed and has assumed office. In the first applicant's papers, nothing is said that could conceivably reflect negatively on the suitability of Justice Madlanga or the Acting Minister Kachalia to fulfill their obligations in terms of the President's decisions. We therefore conclude that the matter is not urgent.
Now, South Africa's Democratic Alliance Member of Parliament, Diane Kohler Barnett, has been accused of fueling attacks against crime intelligence. The KwaZulu-Natal Province Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has revealed this at the Madlanga Commission in Pretoria. He says that she is one of the leading figures in the legislature breaking the law. Mkhwanazi has accused Barnard of using classified intelligence to launch probes and fuel attacks against crime intelligence.
We see here it's a person who has a legal obligation to keep the mouth shut and go to the Joint Standing Committee and present and ventilate on this and hold the Divisional Commission accountable. But she does not use that platform. She goes publicly and disclose this. The risk of these commissioners is that it forces the members that are within crime intelligence in the public space to defend themselves by divulging all the secrets of the states that they are aware of.
And Ukraine Special Operations Forces say they're stuck in an important oil refinery in the city of Volgograd in western Russia. They claimed the attack had brought operations there to a complete halt. The refinery is one of Russia's largest and helps supply the country's armed forces with fuel. The BBC's Danny Aberhart has more details.
Russia has not officially commented on the Ukrainian claims to have hit and stopped production at the Volgograd refinery. The region's governor spoke only of Russian air defences repelling a massive drone attack, adding that, as he put it, debris had fallen on private homes in the city. The Russian authorities have, though, acknowledged there's been a drone attack and a fire at a separate petrochemical refinery in the Bashkortostan region to the north of Kazakhstan. Video footage purportedly of the aftermath of the attack shows smoke rising from the area.
And France is preparing for a day of strikes and protests that has been called to put pressure on President Emmanuel Macron and his new Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu to reverse planned budget cuts. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to take part in the protest action. The BBC's Hugh Schofield reports.
There'll be a fair amount of disruption on public transport as well as at airports, and some schools will shut. Throughout the day, there'll be demonstrations in the big cities. As ever on days like this, trouble can't be ruled out, with members of the so-called Black Bloc ultra-left-wing groups expected to break away from the main cortege to vandalise and attack police. The aim of the movement is to protest against the budget cuts outlined by the last government of François Bayrou, which the new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, has not entirely renounced.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tshepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
At 6 minutes past 9, so just a reminder, you can reach out to us on +27 6340 9126. That's the WhatsApp hotline number if you'd like to share your thoughts on some of the top stories that we're covering now. Let's take you to Malawi, where the European Union Election Observer Mission has released its primary findings on Malawi's 2025 general polls. The mission notes that the campaign period was largely peaceful and inclusive, with fundamental political rights respected. However, it highlighted some of concerns, including opposition mistrust of the Malawi Electoral Commission, unequal access to resources, and the lack of campaign finance regulation, which favoured wealthier candidates. The observers also pointed to disproportionate media coverage given to the Malawi Congress Party and the use of resources in campaigning by incumbent President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera and government officials. Overall, while polling day itself went smoothly, the report underscores ongoing challenges in ensuring a fully level playing field. Tonight, we speak to the Center for Human Rights Education, Advice and Assistance. It also has been observing the elections on behalf of Malawian citizens. We're joined now by Victor Mango, who's with the organization, to talk about this. A very good evening to you, Mr. Mango, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Just tell us a little bit more about the role that you played in monitoring the elections and what your own personal observations were, particularly on the ground.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing me here. Yeah, as CREA, we are part of the observer team from Malawi. That's our local observers. Yeah, if I can take you from the beginning, there were mistrust. Many people were not trusting the Malawi Electoral Commission that they are going to handle impartial election. Basically, they had their own worries. They said that the chairperson of the Malawi Electoral Commission is related to one political party, Malawi Congress Party, and also the use of the machines. Some people, they said that they have bought rigging machines, so they were not comfortable with the Malawi Electoral Commission, to the extent that many people actually did not register for vote, because they were already disappointed. They were thinking that maybe the vote is going to be rigged. So a population of 22 million and they make projected about 11 million or so people that are going to vote, but only 7 million registered to vote, and out of that, it is only 5 million they are going to vote. They have voted, which means that a number of people have not voted.
Now, I want to talk about what we mentioned, some of the observer missions highlighted, particularly in this case. We're talking about the European Union Election Observer Mission. Now, you spoke about the fears of the vote being rigged. Does that present a validation of those sentiments if the observer mission talks about unequal access to resources, lack of campaign finance and regulations which favored wealthier candidates, and government officials having disproportionate media coverage? Is that seen as an unfair advantage, leverage for the governing party and also the strongest other party in the country?
Yes, that's unfair leverage. When we are talking of rigging of election, people they think that elections are rigged at the polling date, but most of the times the elections are rigged pre the election date. You have mentioned of the media, more especially the Malawi Broadcasting Corporation. They were indeed biased towards the ruling party. They had special programs on election, actually praising the government of the day and demonizing the opposition leaders. And this has happened so many times. The government using the public resources for campaigns. We have seen for the first time that the ruling Malawi Congress Party, they were buying a lot of campaign materials and hiring so many vehicles in all their rallies using what we don't know, but we can describe that maybe they were using public resources as well. Even the members of cabinet, the ministers, they were seen each and every day on the road using the official cars, which is advantaging them and disadvantaging the oppositions. So there were so many people who were worthy distributing money to the candidates. So there were so many things that I think they were done in a wrong way. Actually, disadvantaging the poor and also advantaging the opposition party. Most of them, they don't have resources.
And how did this translate into the number of people that ended up exercising their right to vote? You gave us the figures, about 5 million people who actually did cast their ballot. And were these issues that you're raising now some of the reasons for not participating for those who didn't?
Yes, I think most of them, they were disappointed. During the registration period, most opposition leaders actually the way they were relating to their members, it was sort of discouraging them that there will be a machine that the Malawi Electoral Commission are going to use it, and some people thought that if they are using the machine, maybe we have already lost an election. And most of the times in Malawi, people they say that the ruling party does not lose the election. Yeah, and also people maybe they were frustrated by the politicians' promises. They had high hope. I can describe the current government, the President Chakwera's government was highly favored by the people. They had all the political will, but unfortunately, maybe they lost it. So people were disappointed because you can even see from the stronghold, the central region, not many have voted despite registering. So many people are disappointed, and I think they have been voted apathy as well.
And I'd like to hear your assessment, given that some of the observer missions are already putting out their preliminary reports. As civil society, you are that all-important bridge between the government and the people, as in civilians. What has been your own independent view of not only how the Malawi Electoral Commission comported itself, but the process? the logistical challenges that were experienced, did they deny Malawians overall their right to vote in some cases?
Yes, I know that some cases voting started very late, and you know for sure that maybe one or two people, they were disappointed and then they went home. They never came back. I remember I voted in one of the prisons. We are supposed to start at 6 o'clock, but I think we were late by 15 or 20 minutes. But in some other areas, I think they were very late, 2 hours, still not starting voting. So many people, some of them, they could. We don't have the figures, but for sure, some of them, maybe they were discouraged and they went back home. Yeah, it's possible.
And I want to talk now about the counting process. This is the stage where we're at, the results that have been announced so far, and the credibility and transparency that has led to the announcement of the preliminary results. Just share your views, please.
Yeah, let me say that I think the voting itself was peaceful. We've isolated maybe incidences that were also handled well by the security personnel. The counting is disappointing. The people who voted, as I've already indicated, 5,000 plus, but up to now, the votes are coming in slowly. But we know it's the process. They want to make sure that each and every vote should be counted. And maybe sometimes there are some queries, so they want to resolve them before publishing the results. But we have seen an improvement lately. I think for sure by tomorrow we'll have the final results. Yeah, so far so good, despite the challenges that we saw earlier on.
And just as a final question, obviously voting is not the final end when we talk about the democratic process, how all of these things are handled, who announces the result, from whence, and the legal processes that would unfold should there be a challenge to those results, as we saw in 2019. What advice would you give not only to the MEC, to political parties and the incoming government as a civic organization?
Yes, I think so far Malawians are peaceful people. I believe that we have also credible institutions that handles the disputes. As I'm talking, we have the High Court of Malawi. They are designated judges to handle these election matters, and so far they have handled some of them. So I think I just need to advise Malawians that I think they should be cool. They should not. We are always known as peace-loving Malawians, so they should wait for the results to come. And if there are some disputes, they should wait for the credible institution to solve the disputes. I just need to pat them on their back. It was a tense process, but so far so good. We are happy that all the institutions are responding to issues in a quick manner. So far, they have handled several cases, so we are happy. And also, even in the Malawi Electoral Commission, we need to pat them on the back, despite all these rumors. But I think they have handled this election professionally.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights, the latest information out of Malawi from the elections. That's Victor Mango, leader for the civic organization Center for Human Rights Education, Advice and Assistance in Malawi. And that brings the time to 18 minutes past 9.
Madapiri pazochitika. Madapiri pazochitika.
Boma la dziko la South Sudan alengeza kuti wachiwiri kwa mtsogoleri wa dzikolo Riek Machar akuyenera kuyankha mlandu ofuna kulanda dziko wakupha komanso okonza ziwawa. Ndipo mtolankhani wathu nkummawa kwa Africa Afresa unene akuwunikirapo.
Muchikalata chomwe chinalengezedwa ndi nduna yoona zamalamulo komanso chilungamo ya dziko la South Sudan, chikalatachi chinalengeza kuti wachiwiri kwa president wa dzikolo Riek Machar apeze akupezeka ndi milandu yokupha yofuna kuwukira boma komanso kulanda dziko ndi kuyambitsa ziwawa. Riek Machar akhala akusungidwa mokakamizidwa ku nyumba kwawo kuyambira mwezi wa Marichi chaka chino. Mwezi wa Marichiwu asilikali omwe mbuyomu anali mgulu lomwe limagwira ntchito limodzi ndi Machar anamenyana ndi asilikali a boma a South Sudan Defense Forces SPDF mu chigawo cha White Nile dziko.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri.
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And it is 20 minutes past 9. We continue with the show. This time we talk about the Democratic Republic of Congo's president, Felix Tshisekedi, who has arrived in South Africa for a high-level meeting with President Cyril Ramaphosa. The visit comes just days after Tshisekedi declined to attend a peace conference that brought together representatives from the M23 rebel movement and opposition groups from the DRC, as well as other stakeholders and role players. President Tshisekedi's stop over to Pretoria is being seen in some circles as a crucial diplomatic engagement. But according to Pretoria, discussions will range from regional peace and security to bilateral trade and cooperation between Kinshasa and Pretoria. To speak a little bit more about the significance of the visit, we're joined now by Africa analyst Kwezi Mngabisa. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
So, as we mentioned, a crucial visit at a very crucial time. Is it a little bit suspicious in the timing, given the fact that President Tshisekedi was invited to South Africa, and now there are these talks with President Cyril Ramaphosa about regional peace and security, even though the invitation from the Mbeki Foundation was to be that. And I understand that the terms of the meeting between the two presidents would be broader, but I just want to hear your thoughts about this.
Well, I think there is much to read. The timing is definitely suggesting that it's a counter move on the part of the administration in Kinshasa. The administration there has been really having had a tough time with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation inviting a number of political actors that were in hostility towards the administration in Kinshasa. They refused to actually attend the peace and security dialogue. And I think that the timing of this particular visit is meant to communicate quite clearly that all diplomatic endeavors to find a lasting peace reside with the participation of Kinshasa. At the same time, I think it's an assertion of sovereignty on the part of the administration in Kinshasa, with President Tshisekedi saying that he is the point person. It is he and only he who has got a right to speak in part on behalf of the government of the DRC, but perhaps more importantly, of being engaged on developments in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the timing definitely communicates a tit-for-tat type of situation. You had your time with the negative forces, and I am here to assert the role of the government in Kinshasa.
Now, we've seen the presidency label this visit by all intents purposes as a routine visit, and you say it is strategic in the sense that it probably is Kinshasa really stamping its authority on its sovereignty. But is it also a statement on the elder statesman's previous stint as a peacemaker? Or would that be reading too much into it? Because looking at where the situation is now, the role players that are involved in the peace talks under the US, are these two very divergent approaches and therefore of greater preference to Kinshasa?
I don't think at this point in time the continent and the administration in Kinshasa has the luxury of preferences. I think in essence, as I like the framing you introduced, is it strategic? Everybody is talking about what is the list of stratagem that will actually assert our rights, or at least our position, and in the part of the Kinshasa administration, is it strategic to be talking to South Africa at this point in time? indeed, it is very important for Kinshasa to be talking to South Africa. In less than 70 days or so, South Africa will be hosting the G20. This is the most important, some would say, economic gathering in the world, and the world economy is in the state that it is in. So talking to South Africa in order to canvass, position, lobby, provide information around the state of affairs in the Democratic Republic of Congo, to strengthen South Africa's position as a voice of the global south and of the continent, but perhaps at the same time, I think a pull on the emotional heartstrings of South Africa to say that, by the way, the challenges and issues of the Democratic Republic of Congo, beyond them being the issue of the Congolese, you have had a historical role. I would imagine that this is possibly the very first time that the administration in Kinshasa has been to South Africa to actually discuss on a bilateral level, after South Africa bled its sons and daughters in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So I would like to think of this as a very strategic time for the DRC to both communicate its own strategies and outcomes that it would like to see in what South Africa's role is in global affairs, but at the same time to also, I think, enjoin South Africa to some of the agreements that we have seen come through from Washington to Qatar and elsewhere. So it is a very strategic move, I would like to say.
Now, you talk about these capital cities, and I'm just sitting here thinking that from Sun City to Luanda to Nairobi, if we were to navel gaze and look at the structural processes and flaws of past attempts, where would you pinpoint them? Because there are those who have been critical about the U.S. negotiations, saying it's M23 speaking with Rwanda and the DRC. What about Uganda? What about other role players, as we saw happen in Sun City?
A few days. In fact, I think I'd like to believe it was less than 60 days after Sun City. South Africa hosted what later became known as the Pretoria Agreement or the Pretoria Accords. Many, I am one of those, like to think that much of what is the problem in the DRC is largely as a result of the unfinished business of those Pretoria Accords. Specifically, if you look into what Washington agreement between Rwanda and Kinshasa, or rather DRC and Rwanda, it is talking about extending sovereignty beyond the capital Kinshasa to actually make sure that there are other layers of administration. These were the pointed issues that the Pretoria Agreement talked of. South Africa as a mediator then dropped the ball. The African Union and some of the global north countries that were guarantors of that agreement dropped the ball. When things appeared to be stabilizing in the central government in Kinshasa, nobody actually posed the question, what are the aspects of the agreement that have not been fulfilled or that have not been attended to? So when we see in the Washington agreement and in Doha talking about ensuring that there's regional administration, talking about representation, inclusivity, responding to those that have committed crimes, these are all things that in 2002 we had all highlighted and that the parties had agreed upon, but nobody actually paid attention to them because they were not the scary, violent nature of conflict that we've come to only respond to. All so right. This is where the problem is.
Mr. Mngqwisa, very, very briefly, because we've run out of time, but you spoke about some of the major failures where Pretoria dropped the ball. But I know one of the stickler points of why peace has been unattainable has been the disarmament program, which failed dismally. So can South Africa hope to speak, confidently with the DRC and with success about peace and trade, while something as crucial as that has still not worked?
Disarmament, demobilization and reintegration is key. Unfortunately, it will not happen if there are no civic authorities into which to subsume those individuals that have been holding weapons. South Africa has got a responsibility as a member of SADC, as a member of the African Union and the United Nations, and its special relationship with the DRC. If they do not respond to these issues, as we have seen with the recent failures of our armed forces in the Eastern DRC, there is not much that South Africa can do if it does not push for those issues.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your insight. Speaking to us about President Felix Tshisekedi's visit to Mhlamhla in Pretoria to meet President Cyril Ramaphosa. That is Africa Analyst Kwezi Mngabisa.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hifadhi kubwa ya dhahabu, madini adimu na madini ya msingi yameweza kugunduliwa katika wilaya ya Luamo na eneo pana la Karamoja. Hii taarifa ikoje?
Ni kweli ni kwamba uchunguzi ulifanywa kwa muda wa miaka 5 na ugunduzi ni kwamba umeweza kupelekea nchi kupata ufanisi mkubwa hasa katika utajiri wa madini hapa nchini Uganda.
Tumekuwa tuna madini katika bara la Afrika, lakini yamekuwa madini haya hayatunufaishi au kutusaidia kwa namna moja ama nyingine, na tumeendelea kuwa maskini. Unadhani nini kifanyike?
Kubwa katika yote ni kwamba serikali inatakiwa kutoa mkakati mzuri utakaoweza kuwanufaisha kwanza raia wake.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
This September, Channel Africa celebrates Heritage Month, a time to honor the stories, the rhythms, and the languages that make us who we are. Whether you're in Lagos or the shores of Zanzibar, to the mountains of Lesotho or the markets of Dakar, we are united in diversity.
Najivunia kuwa Mwafrika.
Kukondolera Afrika ndiyo nduwake.
Proudly African and fabulous.
Let us preserve our languages. Let's embrace our uniqueness. Let's embrace our cultures and celebrate the beauty of our continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
29 minutes to 10. Certainly one story that is capturing global attention is this issue. It's happening out in the Mediterranean, where the largest civilian flotilla in more than a decade, the Global Simut Flotilla, has set sail in a bid to breach Israel's blockade of Gaza. On board is South African lawmaker and grandson of Nelson Mandela, Nkosi Zwelivelile Mandela. He says Palestinians today face conditions far worse than apartheid. We have him live now. Nkosi, thank you so much for speaking to us. My first question is, where exactly are you docked, if you're able to share that? And if you're docked, or is the flotilla moving towards Gaza as we speak?
Good evening, Tsepiso, and your viewers on Channel Africa. We are as the Global Sumud Flotilla have already sailed, as you would know, that on the 31st of August they sailed out of Barcelona, coming to Tunis. And we, as the South African delegation, wanted to move from the southern tip of Africa to the northern tip of Africa, so that we present a united Africa speaking with one voice in support of the Palestinian struggle. We sailed out of Tunisia 2 days ago towards Italy, where we were able to meet outside Sicily and refuel all other boats that are on the mission. We have with us about 26 boats out of Tunisia, that is Barcelona and Tunisia. We will be joined by another 6 boats out of Greece and another 18 boats out of Italy. So this has become one of the largest flotilla ever witnessed yet. We are currently just outside Sicily, wanting to join with the other boats in the next day or two. The entire flotilla will come together.
Now, some have seen this voyage as one of civil disobedience, but you are obviously saying it's a humanitarian duty. It's a risky voyage. You've already faced drone strikes, engine failures, I believe, and naval threats. Tell us a little bit more about how this experience has been so far and how you're managing to keep morale alive on the boats.
So let us be clear. This is not a civilian disobedience. governments have failed the Palestinians. International institutions that are supposed to preserve international law and maritime law have failed the Palestinians. The United Nations has failed the Palestinians. Having classed this as a genocide, they need to be telling the global community what are the next measures they are putting in place. Are they sending in a peacekeeping mission to ensure that no life is lost further in Gaza? Are they putting an arms embargo on Israel? So this is definitely not a disobedience from civil society, but it is ensuring that we prevent this genocide from carrying on. Many of us, as you would know, are peace-loving humanitarians that have come together from 44 different countries to mobilize civil society across the globe in ensuring that we are able, when governments fail, we the people must rise. And in this regard, we have mobilized society in support of the Palestinian struggle. What has been worth a while for us to even mention is that it has been through ordinary men and women right across the globe that have utilized the electronic intifada and social media to break down the Israeli propaganda and lies that has been perpetuated through Western media. We have been able to turn the tide in favor of the Palestinian struggle. Today, we are witnessing major protests across towns and cities right across the globe. And we are calling on the global society and the global community, just as they were able to rise and stand side by side with us during our struggle for liberation, isolating apartheid South Africa and finally crippling it and bringing it to its knees. We can today, as free citizens of the globe, we South Africans, being beneficiaries of international solidarity, can continue to be the voice of the oppressed and the most vulnerable. And we should be utilizing our experiences into ensuring that we shape and further the Palestinian struggle.
Because Mandela, you speak about the symbolism. Your grandfather, Utata Madiba himself, said that we cannot talk about freedom without the Palestinians. And I want to talk about not only you, but the rest of the flotillas that are joining your mission. Do you think you will end up with symbolism, or do you think there'll be success? Particularly given the fact that other flotillas before have met a violent end, or a rather forceful end in some cases. Are you prepared to risk not only your lives or being attacked for this mission?
Well, first and foremost, let us also understand that our founding father of our democracy and our global icon knew very well back then the importance of international solidarity. So it was in 1962 that he embarked on this very journey, visiting about 15 countries on the African continent, mobilizing the continent to support our struggle for liberation. And in this regard, we know very well that the Palestinians, for them to be successful in their fight for their liberation, they need the support from the global community. And you have once again correctly say that we have been attacked on numerous occasions. There has been 38 flotillas that have sailed, including this one thus far. 5 of them have been successful, but the others have been met with brutal force from the apartheid state of Israel. We must make it clear, with the bombing of our 2 ships, the Family boat and the Alma boat in Tunisia, that was a desperate attempt by apartheid Israel in breaking our morale and instilling fear amongst our participants. But this has simply united us. and has boldened us to want to fulfill the mission, because our mission is simple. We are not carrying weapons. We are not terrorists. We are bringing food, medicine, humanitarian aid, and are bringing hope to the Palestinians.
I don't have to tell you this, Nkosi Mandela. One man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, a very well-known saying that has been particularly referred to regarding South Africa. What about the Israeli state? It would see this as a form of aggression, but do you think, just looking at the people who are aboard the flotilla, I mean, it's an interesting mix, isn't it, of artists, activists, even U.S. veterans. Do you believe that this flotilla of 44, how many is it, 50 vessels or more, will finally help change global opinion?
I want to constantly cement that global opinion has been changed. This is why you are seeing major protests in every city and every town across the globe. But this, again, shouldn't be viewed in the sense of personalities. Yes, we do have doctors, we do have members of parliament, we do have journalists on board. But this is ordinary citizens of the globe who say that they will not sit idle any longer whilst a live genocide is being carried out in full view of the camera. We will not watch over 1 million people being starved to death. And therefore, we will do everything within our means to mobilize the global community, exert pressure on our members of parliament and governments in supporting the Freedom Flotilla and ensuring that the much needed humanitarian aid reaches our brothers and sisters in Gaza. We want to make a call to those in particular that are sitting at home to make every possible means in isolating apartheid Israel.
Just a final question. You lamented at the beginning of our discussion the lack of a serious or effective action by the United Nations. When the news reached you, and I'd imagine it had reached you, that the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory said Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians, was that something that gave you encouragement, that buoyed your spirits, all of you on these vessels, that something, the needle is shifting?
Of course, we do appreciate the report and the pronouncement that Israel is carrying out a genocide, but this has been going on for the past 77 years. And the UN has been dragging its feet. Even with this pronouncement, we want to know what are the resolutions that will be implemented by the United Nations in ensuring that this genocide does not continue a day further. We cannot continue watching babies being murdered, babies being starved to death, babies continuously amputated in Gaza, and therefore there's a sense of urgency behind this. And I want to make a simple example. In South Africa, as much as we applaud His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa and our government for taking apartheid Israel to the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, when Colombia withdrew its coal from apartheid Israel, South Africa has become the #1 supplier of coal to apartheid Israel. So we are fueling the genocide, and we need to call on South Africans and civil society to ensure that we stop now with a sense of urgency the exporting of coal to apartheid Israel.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. That is Inkosi Zwelivelile Mandla Mandela, who is aboard the Global Simud flotilla, as we mentioned, the largest civilian flotilla that is headed to try and end the blockade of Gaza. And as he mentioned, they have joined countless of other vessels, 50 or more vessels, about 44 countries, and myriad of activists from all different walks of life trying to take on that mission, which several countries, including South Africa, has warned that it is a very dangerous mission. It brings the time to exactly, let's say 10 seconds before 15 minutes to 10.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
1 hour, 1 continent, 1 voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And we end the show now on a very important topic, heartwarming one, that will hopefully give you a little bit of a boost as you, I don't know about you, but I've been dragging myself through this week. So hopefully it gives you the energy to get through the week. And we're talking about acts of kindness, philanthropy. And on Africa World Hour, we look at a very inspiring story of hope and generosity. Kamokhelo Motaung, a grade 12 learner from Mahikeng, had been living with cataracts in both eyes for over a year, and he was facing the terrifying prospects of total blindness thanks to the intervention of ophthalmologist Dr. Tebogo Maleka and his team. Kamokhelo underwent life-changing surgery just in time to continue with his matric exams. Dr. Maleka joins us now in studio to reflect on what moved him to act and the challenges of cataracts in young people, and of course the role of philanthropy in dealing with particularly vulnerable communities. Dr. Maleka, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate it. I know it's late at night, but when I saw, in fact, it was Jaco who brought the story to my attention. I know it was done by one of my colleagues, Tabang, and I must congratulate her. I'm just curious about what moved you to say, I'm going to step in and change this young man's life.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's pretty much obvious. I mean, this grade 10 learner, when I heard the story, it was just heartbreaking that he was writing prelim or preparation exams for matric finals, and the teachers had to read out the examination paper to him, and he would say the answers back for them to put them down on a piece of paper for it to be marked later. And that's...
Did you see yourself in him, just in terms of having a future, a hope, and perhaps even feeling helpless?
You know, it's heartbreaking. It's a young, intelligent young man, and for him to be going through this I think matric is the most important year of your life, career-wise, and for him to be going through that, not seeing, it was just going to be a disaster if we had let him get to year end in that condition where he couldn't see a thing.
And with a lot of us, it's an occupational hazard, isn't it? That your mind starts going into overdrive. So did you start thinking or asking yourself, I wonder how long the situation has been going on? And if you just can take us through the scientific medical aspect of it, cataracts, exactly what are they? We often think of them as something that afflict older people. So tell me what was going through your mind, and when you eventually did examine him, what did you find?
The cataracts, yes, happen in the over 60s, average age being 65, and but they can happen in young people. Kids can be born actually from day one. They can have cataracts, rarely so, but they do happen. And in Kamogelo's age, when you're a teen, it's mainly from metabolic disorders. Diabetes is the commonest cause of cataracts in that age group, but it can be from trauma, it can be from eye conditions, infections, it can be from, a whole myriad of systemic diseases. And when they reached out to me to say this young man cannot see, the first step is just to organize and get somebody to bring him in and have a look. You just have an open mind. There can be 101 things that can cause blindness in that age group. And personally, cataracts were not, it was not the first thing I thought of. I thought it was going to have, normally in that age group, it's corneal disorders where you have abnormalities of the front part of your eye. That's the commonest cause of blindness in that age group. I thought it was going to be that, but cataract, I would say, is part of the top 5.
And obviously, out of respect for Kamogelo, we don't want to, breach his legal rights over his personal information. What are the signs that parents ought to look out for? As you say, it does occur in children based on a number of factors, but to ensure that we have good eye health, a lot of parents in disadvantaged areas either don't know about regular eye tests, or there is a lack of means, and naturally as we wouldn't know what signs to look out for where complications would develop.
It's mainly behavioral signs. I mean, a child would stand very close to the television, or they would hold reading material very close to their face, and that would suggest that they have something, going on with their eyesight. But kids can adapt, they can hide the signs, not intentionally, obviously, but they can,
because they cope.
They can cope very well with the disability, and sometimes it takes, an observant, especially outsider, the grandmothers, to notice that the kid, there's something odd that's happening with the child.
Now, prevalence, is it more likely in rural communities? These types of afflictions, and Limpopo, I think I read somewhere saying that there's a high prevalence of cataracts in adult communities. Does it have anything to do with the environment or the living conditions?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's just that the I would say people in the big cities have access to specialists like me, and they can readily come in. And quite a lot of, I would say, even affluent families that do not have anything wrong with their eyesight would come in for regular checkups just to, have their eyes checked. But in rural communities, there's a lack of healthcare providers, and people tend to live with the symptoms, hoping that they will get better over time. And normally patients that come out, or people that come from rural areas, tend to come through with advanced disease, just like Kamogelo did. Waited over a year without seeing. By the time we saw him, I would say the cataracts that were in him were the most dense I've seen this year.
How would you describe that? I mean, what we know is that it's almost like a veil that covers your eyes. So from a medical term, when you say it's the most dense, how do you measure? Is it centimeters? Is it,
So an eye has a lens in it that lets the light through to go stimulate the back of the eye, the retina, the membrane that captures the light and converts it into a signal that the brain can understand. So that lens, just like a lens in your, I would say, glasses, in your camera.
Don't worry, they know I wear these. I need them.
The lens has to be crystal clear, but it's made of protein and of a crystal clear protein. And with, conditions, there's conditions that will make this lens lose its clarity, and it just goes milky. It becomes a dirty window. Initially, you see a little bit of smoky vision, then it gets denser and denser to a point where no light is let through into your eye, and you're just living in total darkness.
Now, I want to go back to the issue of philanthropy. You obviously did this out of the goodness of your heart, and I don't imagine it's the first time you do it or the last time you do it. What is the importance of philanthropy in eye health, particularly in vulnerable communities? It's obviously not a sustainable thing, but it obviously does play a very important role for people who probably would end up blind, or as you say about Kamokhelo, who would end up not having an opportunity to make their dreams come true simply because they were born in lack or born beyond access.
Yeah. There's a few organizations that offer, eye services in these kind of communities, but we're not even scratching the problem. We're not saying hello to the problem. It's the need is so vast. We do the best we can, but
how would you categorize it when you say it's vast? And let's say if you make a comparison of 1 in 10 people, how many actually?
So especially in the elderly, just this particular problem, okay? At the age of 65, we would say almost 80% of patients have some form of cataracts. So you can imagine all the elderlies in the rural communities at that age, way before 70, the vast majority of them are actually in need of cataract surgery. And you find communities where there is not even a single center that offers cataract surgery. And we have a lot of the elderly that's supposed to be enjoying their twilight years at that age, and they simply can't see.
What would need to change in health policy to divert resources to, reduce the problem?
We need to train more specialists that are prepared to work and be in those communities. And maybe NHI one of these days might address these problems. But there's simply not enough, unfortunately.
And now talk to me then about mentorship programs and outreach to encourage students to enter ophthalmology. What do you see yourself doing? What do you see others out there doing in order to achieve this?
When I trained, I remember with Wits, they were producing like just a few four per year back in the day. Now the number, I believe, has more than tripled, but we need way more. There's about 8 or 10 training institutions around the country, with Wits University being the biggest producer of eye specialists. We have about, I would say, around 350 to 400 eye specialists in the country to serve the 60 million population in South Africa, and that's simply not enough. I think, but the training is getting better in terms of producing specialists in South Africa, but we definitely need more.
Just a final quick question. What made you think I want to be an ophthalmologist?
Yeah, it's a long story, but as a young man playing football in high school, I got a ball to my eye.
Why did I think it was
football into my eye? I remember going into what I think was an eye specialist back then with a sore eye, and I immediately left the rooms of the specialist with a comfortable eye. And I didn't think much of it. Then I went to medical school, and when I did the ophthalmology rotation in medical school, which is just 2 years 2 weeks out of the 6 years of training, there's very little ophthalmology training when you are in your undergrad. And it reignited that wish, dream, or the urge to want to do something with the eyes, and that's how I ended up taking this further. And I used to wear glasses, by the way.
Okay.
And
makes sense.
And I hated them in high school. You were not popular with the girls and whatnot because you wore glasses.
Before you take out all of your secrets, Dr. Maleka, let's end it there.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming here, Dr. Tebogo Maleka. We talk about transforming lives, the wonderful work that he's doing in ophthalmology, and let's end the show now. But coming up next is Sheila Ndukumana with African Diaries.